Interview with Edda Goring, 1993. Question. Thank you for letting me speak with you. I would like to ask some questions regarding your father, Herman Goring. Do you remember much about your father? Edda. Sadly, my memories are from later in the war, as I was very young, born in 1938, and nearly 7 when it ended. I would like to state my father was a well-liked commander who inspires his men even to this day. I had many former comrades who spoke to me after the war and asked me not to believe anything the Allies said about my father. He always acted correctly and had a deep respect for others. I remember he loved me and my mother very much. He would always lavish us with gifts and take us on shopping sprees in the city, but these I don't remember very well. He always wanted the best for us, and he had very healthy meals cooked for us. I always dressed up for important guests at our home, and if they brought other children, we would go play outside in my playhouse that had rooms and a stage to dress up and pretend to do opera or dancing. He was always happy and friendly. I remember he would help anyone who needed it. He always donated to the charities and war widows' causes. It affected him deeply when he heard of the death of a comrade or a soldier who fell at the front. He was always jovial and in a good mood, even when it was hard to be. My father was so worried about us later in the war, he moved us to Birch's Garden to help keep us away from the bombings. I enjoyed playing in the mountain air, but I did miss our home in Karen Hall. I remember seeing my father in Allied custody for the first time, and he was very confident he would be freed and any charges dropped, as he said he obeyed all laws of war and did nothing that would harm his reputation and honor. Question. Your father was accused of stealing and plundering art treasures from all over Europe and looting items from Jews. Can you talk about this and share your beliefs? Edda. Considering who I'm speaking to, yes, I will tell you the truth of what these lies and slander are all about. My father was a European. He loved the culture of our people, regardless of nationality. He saw talent in every nation and had a deep respect for the art and culture of all nations. Because of his stature and prestige, he received many gifts from very important people. The claim that my father looted works of art is obscene and a lie from his enemies. The claim that Germany stole treasures is equally false. I do remember in 1943 my father speaking to some people and telling them that due to the reckless Allied bombing raids, that Europe's treasures were to be saved by removing them to places that were safe. The Allies bombed indiscriminately, hitting churches, schools, hospitals, and everything else in the cities. So it was necessary to remove paintings and sculptures to castles, caves, and smaller towns that were safe. At no time did my father have any work sent to him that he did not legally purchase or receive as a gift. The Allies are only trying to cover their tracks by blaming my father for looting when they were the masters of looting Europe's treasures. We read today in the papers accounts of lost works showing up in Allied soldiers' possessions. In 1945, Europe lay bare, and these vermin swooped in and took whatever they could carry. I know the Fuhrer even ordered works to be safeguarded from destruction, and due to this, they were removed and put in safe storage so they would not be destroyed. The Allies looted the works my family owned, and then the German government jumped in to steal works that were given to me as gifts and were taken back with the false claims that they were only given due to pressure from my father. What ridiculous antics. Now Jews are getting into the fray by claiming works they legally sold for profit were stolen. They then get them back free of charge. It has become quite a lucrative racket to claim the National Socialist government stole everything. Question. Do you believe all the stories about your father stealing or forcing people to give up works of art are made up? Edda, you have to understand the undercurrent of post-war Europe. The Allies dominated everything. They murdered many people who were National Socialists, put millions in jail for political beliefs, and struck a fear in most people. When they came asking questions, all of a sudden people did not want to admit being in the party or liking Hitler. They were afraid, so they agreed when the Allies suggested that works of art were forcibly sold and deceptively acquired. They were rewarded by receiving good treatment and compensation for lying. I have had enough of my father's friends tell me he never did any of these things that I am sure he has made a scapegoat. The Allies are the real thieves, and they then point the finger to my father. Much like the lie of Germany killing Jews in a planned way, the art thefts are the same thing, misunderstood and exaggerated. Question: do you remember anything about Hitler? Edda: very little. He was my godfather, and I have seen the many photos taken of me being held with him. I only remember how caring he was, and always made sure I had a snack or dessert when I visited. I will tell you now, I do not believe any of the stories the Allies tell about him. He was a good man, a true leader of our people, and loved by countless millions. It is sad the war has to define him. Question: what did your mother think of him? Edda: she always said he was a great man and that she was fortunate enough to live to see him. She said a leader like the Fuhrer has never been seen since the time of Christ. She remembered how kind and warm he was, how he cared for all people and only wanted to see Europe live in peace. Something you may be interested in knowing is that there were Jews who supported him, and he had no animosity towards them, only the wealthy usurpers who were trying to destroy us. He said it was only she said it was only after the war that the Allies made it look like he targeted all Jews for killing. I know that is not true because I would see them, Jews, in Berlin even in 1944. My mother was a very intelligent woman. She would never have associated with bad people. She is just one of the many reasons why I know the claims and accusations against National Socialists and my father are not true. Question: did you see him, her dad, at Nuremberg? Edda: yes, my mother and I, and pretty much all family members of the men who were on trial, were also imprisoned. Me, a young child, was under guard by Allied soldiers and not allowed to come and go. My father even had a brother who was in favor of the monarchy and so rejected National Socialism as being too revolutionary, was imprisoned. The German media cast him as an anti Nazi hero, but he was not. Like my father, he had many Jewish friends. He would help them if they ran into trouble, and I felt he was used many times, though, as he seemed too good natured, that he could seem gullible. His help was only his nature, not a political statement. My mother told me my father understood the trial was the lies the victors agreed upon, and he was a scapegoat. He tried to point that out, but it failed. He told me to stay strong and remember him always, as he loved my mother and me dearly. I can share with you today that he had a few Americans who knew he was innocent, and they did not want to see him hang, so they gave him poison. This was confessed to me. Not all the Allies were bad. Some saw the truth of what had happened, and they were ashamed. What was life like for you after the war? Edda: it was a somber survival. The Allies kept my mother and me when we were released. And when we were released, I was sent to a girls' school to get a good education. I was always around supporters and National Socialist thinkers. The Allies tried to bring in many communists and Jews, almost as if they wanted to further punish us by putting these people in charge. I was able to stay away from these people and finish schooling, getting my degree. Many of my father's friends sought me out to offer help and services. I was advised to not talk to the press as my words would be twisted, and I could get into trouble if I said something nice about my father or the Fuhrer. Therefore, I have largely stayed quiet, but it is nice telling someone what I know. Some in the family have completely bought into what the enemies of Germany have forced us to believe. It is too hard for the truth to be told, so the lies of the victorious Allies, especially the Americans, are spewed every day in the papers and on TV. Anyone in Germany today who tries to tell the truth can lose his or her pension, face jail plus fines, and loss of property. Only another reason why I know Hitler was a good leader. The world has to force people to believe a certain way, otherwise, you pay the price. So much for freedom of thought and belief. Question. You do not believe the National Socialist government did anything bad. Edda. I believe the Allies were the aggressor and started the war, committed many war crimes, and then blamed everything on Germany. Dresden is a good example. They bombed a city which was a refugee center, killing most likely a huge number that is covered up, then blaming Hitler. As if they had nothing to do this to show they were right and we were wrong. As if they had to do this to show they were right and we were wrong. My father hated using the Luftwaffe to wage war. He hated bombing England, but I know England bombed Germany first and hit our cities first. All governments may not be perfect, but under Hitler, Germany was close. The stories I was told make me wish I could have experienced more of what life was like. On the battlefields, there may have been small incidences of crimes, but it was not the intention of Germany to stoop to the Allies' level. Most all Germans who lived under the Third Reich would give anything to go back to those times, minus the war. I have never heard anything bad from those who lived it, except the communists who were put in camps if they agitated against the state. They are the biggest driving force of the critics to the Fuhrer today, all in positions of big power and very wealthy. Like rats, more and more have come forward to claim they were victims so they can collect money, and I am sure they were not victims of anything. Question. Did Hitler not turn on him at war's end? Edda. From what I have been told and understand, the end of the war was very confusing. My father was next in line to the Fuhrer, and in April of 1945, he honestly believed Hitler was unable to effectively lead anymore as Berlin was destroyed and surrounded. His telegram was a simple request to ask the Fuhrer if he should assume control. But I believe those who were influencing Hitler were misunderstanding the picture. At least I hope that was their reasoning. Bormann is supposed to have told Hitler my father was a traitor, but I do not believe that. I believe there was a misunderstanding due to the confusion at the end. My father was confined with us, and I remember he was very frustrated as he was working to get as many people safely to the Western Allies as he could, as the Russians were raping and looting where they had been. As the situation in Berlin deteriorated and people saw what was happening, we were released so my father could further work on reaching the Allies to secure safe passage for all the fleeing refugees. More and more of his men came to Ober-Salzburg to organize, but he sent them home to their families as he wanted to spare them.